Hello and welcome to the WEmpower Pakistan's podcast. In this podcast series, we invite professional women from all walks of life, particularly women in STEM. Today we have with us Gráinne McAndrews. She is a business development manager for over 10 years, and she's been living in Oman for the past 12 years. As a business development manager, her role is to coordinate organizational activities to help them achieve their goals and objectives. Gráinne has specialized in HR and recruitment for the past 6 years and has worked with companies in the business, finance, education, and environmental sectors. We welcome you, Gráinne, to our podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for having me. So today I want to talk about do's and don'ts for when you apply for jobs, because there are many mistakes that people make, and then there are things that people should be doing on their CV that they're not. And so today I want to focus on that. Being a recruiter and often seeing like hundreds of CVs, I can clearly tell you some of the things that you need to do and don't do for when you want to apply for a role. So I'm going to start with some of the things not to do. And this is quite common for a lot of people and when they send CVs. And basically, if we see some of these mistakes, if it's me, I won't even read your CV. I will just move it on and put it into the reject pile. Even if you have the best experience in the world or you've got really good key skills that fit the role, if you are not doing some of these things correctly, then you won't even get past the first stage. Let me explain a little bit about stages and the process before you even get to an interview. There's probably about 3 stages in the CV. There's the initial stage of like, do you reach the criteria? Then there's the stage, do you have the right skill set for the role that you're applying for? And then there's the final stage is, do you have the right soft skill set? So even before you get to an interview, your CV has gone through about 3 checks. So some of the things that people do is, what they do is they will use one CV to apply to many roles. Okay, and in the case of CV, when you're applying to positions, it's not a case of one fits all. In fact, that's the thing that you shouldn't be doing. People want to see that you are applying to that role and that you've read the job description and that you are specifically applying to that role, and that it's not just a generic CV that you're sending out to everybody and anybody for a particular role. The second thing that people shouldn't do is bad formatting. Okay, there's a bit of a discussion over if you're using if it's going through like the ATS systems, do you use 1 column or 2 column? I'll come back to that later. But regardless of if you're going to use 1 or 2 columns on your CV, formatting is key. You only should be using 2, 3 fonts at the most. The fonts should all be like similar size, so you should have 1 size for heading, 1 size for your bullet points. There should be no less than 11, which is the minimum that you should be going to for bullet points. I see CVs with headers, 3 different types of headers, different types of fonts, different types of, there's things all over the place. If I see a CV like that, I don't even read it. Okay. Another one that is key, and we all know this, but we still don't really we don't do it, bad grammar or spelling. You could have a perfect CV, you could have the perfect skill set, but if you are making grammar mistakes, that tells the company that you don't, so like your attention to detail is lacking. That you haven't if you haven't taken the time to do it on your CV, then why would a company employ you? Because that lack of attention to detail could cost a company, if it's a financial mistake, or it's a mistake when it comes to science, it could cause the company money, it could cause issues within the company, or in worst case scenario, life, when it's coming down to science and medicine.
So it just translates into that you're not very careful.
You're not very careful at all. You haven't taken due diligence. You haven't taken care. So and I've known for managers who are looking at people, I thought I found a really good person, and even I missed once on one CV, I missed a spelling mistake, and the manager caught it and just refused to see it. And I thought I had the perfect candidate, and that it was a spelling mistake, and it was a small one.
So basically, it's a small thing, but it can make a huge difference for your job application.
Very much so. And so, I always say to people, check it, then get someone else to check it. If you've got someone that you trust, who, especially if, in your own language, or even if you're doing it in English, and you've got someone that's, you trust in English, and level of English and grammar, then, go through about 3 or 4 checking levels, especially with a CV for a job that you're really, really want, and you're really keen to get this job. Basically, make sure that you take it through levels of checking. It's similar to what you would do in a role. If you were doing something in data and you've got a team, you'd get a team to check figures or whatever. It's no different. You should be doing that with your CV as well. The other key thing is that what I find a lot of people do is, and I know when you're looking for a job or you're desperate for a job, you think you can apply for everything, and hopefully someone will pick your CV up. It's not the case. What recruiters are looking for is that you've read the requirements for the job, and then that you've got the skill set or the qualification or the amount of years of work experience that fit that role.
So you have to be very particular and specific before applying to a job. Just don't apply anywhere. Is that what you're saying?
You can spend the time sending your CV off, but basically it's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to explain a little bit more about that in a little while about I remember I talked to you about the first stage of the CV. But the first stage of your CV is checking that you've got the basic requirements, and if you haven't, then it just goes on the reject pile. So if you don't meet those minimum requirements, then your CV is never going to get in front of people who are going to be the hiring people. It's just going to get stuck in the first stages.
So you have to make sure that your skill section is in order.
Skill section, qualifications, years of work experience, etc. And then the other thing that people don't do as well is they don't read the job specification. So, you could have 2 jobs, which is the title of data analysis, say, but the company have got different sets of criteria that they want that person to do. So there may be fundamental, key skills that both roles would have. But then one company, based on the type of company could be asking that person to be doing something else compared to another one. And if you're sending in a generic CV that only shows that you've got those 3 or 4 generic skill set that's in both jobs, but you haven't gone through and identified that you've got the right skills to meet the criteria of that role, again, it will just be rejected.
So that's something you should not do if you want to have a qualifying CV.
Yeah, it's a qualified CV. For me, it's more important that you go for quality roles that you match, and you make sure that you spend quality time on your CV, that you get it right, rather than sending lots and lots of generic CVs out to everywhere and just hoping that you're gonna maybe be lucky. Because they generally say that 75% of people who apply for a role do not have the right criteria for that role.
So basically, all that is wasted effort. You should be a bit more specific when you're applying to jobs and tailor your resume according to the job description.
Yeah, and so let's say you are let's use data analysis again as an example. If you get your CV, once you've got a really good basic CV, it's not that hard then to kind of manipulate it when you're going into another role. Once you've got the basic, but you are not going to just keep sending that one every single time to every single role, because all that shows the recruiter is that you've not checked the job description. Another key point that I find a lot of people who don't do, and that comes back to, again, if they're just sending generic CVs out to any job in particular, is they haven't done the homework on the company. If you really want to work somewhere and you really want to roll within a company, then you should do your homework on that company. You should research that company, see what is expected of it, what's the ethos behind the company, what kind of working environment they have, because different companies have different working environments. And if they're looking for a particular person that would fit that team, and you don't show that on your CV, then you're not, this is kind of when it gets to the third stage of the CV, when they're looking at the soft skills, and if you fit the role, again, you will be rejected regardless of if you have the right skills and the right education, etc. Do your research. So saying is like, take time on that individual CV for that company than just being generic. And then the last thing is, there's a few things. It's just being more professional. So make sure that you have a professional email. I mean, I've seen some very odd emails in my time when people have come in which you're looking at and thinking, you really shouldn't have that. If you don't have one, then make sure you do get one. You tend to use, for people who are slightly older, and maybe have like one of the, like Yahoo or the older kind of emails, get a Gmail account, because Yahoo and that kind of starts to show your age of people who are sort of like 40 plus. Whereas Gmail is kind of like, the one that is used, it's being more accepted. So if you don't have a Gmail email account, set yourself up. And I know it's difficult with some, like, when you've got lots of people like Mohammed or certain names, but find a way to use that with your name, but with either numbers or part of your surname, or your part of your surname and numbers, but make it professional. And then the last thing is, again, to do your research on what is required on your CV. So for different countries, they require different things. So for instance, if you were applying to a job, say in America or the UK, you are not expected to put your photo on your CV. However, if you are applying, I don't know what's it like in Pakistan? Do you expected to have photos or not?
It's the same. Photos are discouraged. They're not considered very professional to put on a CV or resume.
Yeah, and so generally it's starting to get to the point where you don't put that on. It's also certain things like don't put too much personal information in. So you don't need to put your full address. You can just put where you're located, would be like Muscat. You don't need to put like where in Muscat you are. Generally now it is not expected to have your date of birth on CVs. This comes from an area, the Middle East, it's a bit different, but this comes from an area where you're trying to reduce the amount of discrimination that you get. So people can't discriminate against your age. They can't discriminate, obviously from your name, they'll know if you're female or male. They probably will have an idea of where your nationality is due to your name. But, the photo isn't there to discourage them. It's supposed to be for people to look at your CV and see what skill set that you've got, the experience that you've got, and then to judge you on that and not on other things. But again, if things like it says, I want someone with 7 years to 10 years experience, that means that company is looking for someone with a bit more maturity, a bit more, who has, more skill set, has been in the work environment for longer. And that indicates by that criteria that the type of person they're looking for. They're not looking for a 22-year-old person. So if you are, or a 24-year-old just newly out of graduating, those things there are there for a reason, like what we call gatekeeping. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the application system, okay, which ATS system, yeah,
yes,
which lots of people kind of get a bit worried about. It's the ATS system isn't choosing people who gets through to be interviewed. The ATS system is used as a gatekeep. I always use it kind of like as a gatekeeping exercise. Okay, it basically does what humans used to do, but it just makes it quicker. So especially when you work in a large organization. I mean, if you imagine working for someone like Google or Amazon or, you know, one of these companies, they must get like hundreds of thousands of applications for every role. And before, a person was sitting and going through them. Now we have the ATS system.
ATS.
And
So does the ATS have the power to accept or reject an application, or it just flags the application?
It will reject the application, but it will reject based on set criteria that's been put into the system by the human recruiter. So let's just say that like there's a job, and on that job, so a lot of people, you have on a job specification, you will have the job criteria and what is expected of you in the role. And then you will have under there, which we'll call like essentials or requirements or educational requirements. And these are the fundamental things, the gatekeeping things, that if you don't match them,
ATS will automatically reject the application.
Even a human would. So if I have a CV in front of me, so let's say I have a job and I'm advertising it, and the minimum qualification is like a bachelor's in science or a master's or whatever it is. And then work experience is like 5 years plus. And then salary expectation is this. And there's other like criteria. Must have a driver's license, must have a car, whatever it is. There's lots of different criteria that can be used. If you don't match them, then you automatically will get rejected, either by the ATS system or a human person. Because
either ways, it's going to end up in the rejection.
It's going to end up in the rejection corner. And that's exactly, if I get a CV, if I know that there are certain criteria that's required by the company I'm working for or the government for the country I work for, and they don't meet it, then I don't even read anything else to do with the job history because they don't match the criteria. I'll give you an example. I've recently been doing some recruitment for a training provider in Oman, and we were looking to recruit some native English teachers. And part of the stipulation by the higher education, Ministry of Higher Education, is that people have to have a BA in either education, English, communication. There's certain criteria. If you don't have a BA in those particular fields, you must have then an MA. And if you have an MA in ESOL or English or etc., then you will be considered. If you don't meet that basic requirement of those BA qualifications and the ones that they've stipulated that you have to have, then you will never get approved for a visa here as a teacher, a native, even if you're native English. It doesn't make a difference where you're from. You don't have the basic requirement, education requirement to pass the Ministry of Higher Education to get your visa approved.
So you're saying that having the right degree for the job description is very important. And I think it kind of negates the perception that degrees don't matter, only soft skills matter. You just need to know how to do things.
I think it depends on the role. And again, this is why I said you have to do your research. You have to do your due diligence about the role first. Because, and this is why I said you should, does the role require you to have a certain level of education? I mean, some roles will say, we want a BA in this, and this, or something similar. So when it kind of states something similar, you know that there's a little bit of leg room to what your degree is. Because that might be somewhere that your degree might be slightly different, but they will look at your experience. But if it clearly states that you must have minimum requirement is a BA in such and such, if you don't have that BA, then you will just be rejected. Minimum requirement is 5 years plus. If you've got, there is a little bit, so let's say you've got 4 years or 4.5 years, and you've got the right education, you've got the the right degree or master's, but you've just got 4 years instead of 5. That might be where there is a little bit of leeway, and this is where the ATS system might reject you because you don't have the 5. So what you try and do is you try and make that up to 5, like, because if you've worked somewhere else, maybe not in that field, but had a job previously, you've got some soft skills, then you can add them in under the soft skill set. So there are little tweaks that you can do, but generally, if you don't meet that criteria, if you've got 2 years experience and it's clearly stating 5 plus.
So in 2 or 3 points, if you can tell our audience what we can do to actually get through the ATS, because I think that is a huge wall in getting your resume to an actual human person.
Okay, I think first of all is make sure that you meet the basic criteria of that role. And like we just said, make sure that your education, all those things are on par before you even apply for the role. Then it kind of goes into the next stage, and this is the stage where you're looking at, like, your skill set, and do you have the right skills? And what a lot of people do is they will do like a list. The list, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this in a role. And again, it's your CV is not a to-do list. It's not a shopping list, okay? What you are trying to do is you are trying to prove to the company or the recruiters that you have the skill set to help that organization move forward, improve, make more money, make developments, bring in more students, educate more people, whatever it is. It's like you're trying to prove to them that you've got the right skill set. So you need to make your points orientated towards achievements and goals. Okay. So let's say, for example, you're a teacher, or let's say you're a maths professor. Okay. And you're working on the foundation program of a university, local university, and you taught about 70 to 80 students in that foundation program. Explain that you taught 70 to 80 students on a foundation program, and talk about what your success rate was. Obviously, especially if it's very good. So if you had like 85-90% of the students pass the maths exam or the foundation maths, then claim that 85%, 90% of the students passed, because that shows that you've got the skill set as a teacher to make, to get those students to pass their exams.
So in simpler words, you have to provide proof of concept.
Yeah, it's kind of proof of concept. So, but you can take things like if you're a data analysis and you've worked on data, and that data enabled the company or saved the company money, or saved a project from like going over budget or whatever it is, then use that and also the bullet points from the job specification with regards to how you match them up. But they're looking for you to see that you can work for them and provide them with a skill set, and you can provide them and help them achieve where they're going in their goals. They're not looking to say, oh, look, you did that in your job and you did that in your job. Oh, that's great. Okay. So you need to really look at what the job specification is, and then word match, what we call word match. So you're not regurgitating everything you see there, but we are expecting you to have looked at the job specification and then match it to what your CV says. So, for example, but using synonyms, not just regurgitating the words that are there. So if they say, like have dealt with a large amount of data transformation into, one, don't just repeat the words that you see, but use synonyms, but make sure that you're putting the stuff that's in that job specification into your CV.
Yes.
How you do that is in your personal profile at the beginning. You can then, like I say, make it more goal orientated under each of your jobs. And then also when in the part where you've got hobbies and interests, you can also show that you've got some of the soft skill sets, or you're the right person for the fit. I don't know if you know this, but like Google has this saying that it's called where they have like a criteria where they expect their people to be.
Okay.
And it's like, be kind, be helpful to other people. And there's one, I can't remember what it is. And they are looking for people to fit into that team and to fit into that mindset. Okay. So if you're one of the criteria is to be mindful of other people or to help wherever necessary. Okay. But you can't show that in your work. But as like an extra curriculum, or you're a mother and you help out in the school and you help your kids out. So for instance, my sister's got 3 kids and she goes, she helps out in the kids' school with swimming. So she goes along to help the teachers because they need extra parents. Put that in your CV under your hobbies or interests,
hobbies and interests,
other things that you do, because that clearly shows to a person that you are willing to go over and above and beyond to just what you normally do to help other people. So this is like, it's very key that you really understand the company and what they are all about. And by going onto their website, looking at their vision and mission statements, looking at their all about, going on their social media, Facebook pages, and getting an understanding of what that company is about. And if that company is like a Google where it's all kind of team building, exercising, everybody wants to go in, and you're a very individual person, and you're very good at your job, but you're not like a team player, which is not an issue, then Google isn't the place for you.
So you're not right fit for Google if you have an introverted personality.
Yeah. But you could have another company where maybe like Microsoft is a very different place. When you have Apple, it's kind of, they have smaller teams and they are kind of in pods and stuff, and they don't really know what other people are doing. That might be perfect. Or, you're going to work in an education environment and learn what that education environment is about, what they like, what do they expect from their teachers. There's lots of profiles, and you can get even blogs people have put, about places. Do your research and show it, and then try and get it shown on your CV. So just to kind of sum up, because I know we're at time, just to say to people, don't obsess over the ATS system. Okay, it's a filtering system that is basically doing what a human would do, but on mass level. So the key things that people need to remember is, apply for jobs that you're matching the basic fundamental criteria to. Even regardless of your skill set, if you're not meeting the basic criteria, like for education, etc., then if you want to put your CV in, do, but it's not going to get very far. Secondly, they talk about with the ATS system, some companies will use it to like word match certain things. Some companies use it, some companies don't, because it's not always 100% accurate. And then it comes down to the thing about CVs. Do you use just one column CV to get it through the ATS system, or can you use 2? There are people who say both. Okay. Yes, one column, would get you through the ATS system, but so will a 2-column CV if it's done properly. It's formatted correctly. It's neat and tidy, and it's easy for the computer to read the information. Because don't forget, the final stage of a CV is actually in front of a person. And that person is then going to read through in detail your CV to see if you meet that criteria. So you do need to get it through the ATS system, but don't obsess over it. But the key thing is that if you've got matching the criteria, and especially if you're applying for a job and you've got there's an application, or you've got to fill the boxes in, those boxes are key indicators that they've been there to filter through who has the right experience. Where they may use the ATS system, right? And something I forgot to say earlier about people in the CVs is, for some reason, I always find that people don't put down what data packages or computer packages they've used, especially when they work in a particular field that relies on these packages. So just for example, we were recently looking to recruit accountant, And the amount of CVs I got through where people didn't list the accountancy packages that they had experience in using. That, to me, that's fundamentally one of the first things I would be putting on there. Criteria after education, after such and such would be what packages I used. It may not be the one that the company's working, but if they could see that you've been using one, then they know that it wouldn't be that difficult for you to migrate into a different one. As a recruiter, I shouldn't have to figure out what data, ask you what data or like what applications you've been using in your organization. It should be there and, physically in front of you. So key things like that, and so the ATS system may be using it. So for instance, if you're going for a job and Adobe Photoshop was key for that role. And so that might be one of the key things that they're going to word match with your CV. But they're not going to word match everything because it's not accurate. The other thing is formatting. Okay, use professional fonts. Use the basic fonts that like your Courier, your Arial, etc., etc. No curvy ones. No really ones hard to read. Make sure that you, like I say, your formatting is clear. You're only using one font or two maximum, and then your headings and everything are all the same. So
what font size and line spacing is acceptable?
It's very difficult to say because they tend to say you should have a CV that's no more than 2 pages, because after that it's just going too long. So if you are in your career stage where you may be, say you're in your 40s or even early 50s or whatever it is, and so you've got a little bit of a work history. What I tend to do on mine to a point, because before Oman, so 12 years previously, I say my work history before that time is available on request because it's not related to what I'm doing at the moment. However, if I'm applying for a job and say some of the stuff I had done previously in the 12 years was related, then I would stipulate under a heading the key skills, and then I would list under the company. The other thing that I find that a lot of people don't do is they don't update their CV. So the current job isn't on there; it's the one from before. Oh, yeah. Is that so? Yeah, a lot of the time you'd be surprised how often. Like I said, that comes back to people just sending generic CVs out, and they don't put dates on correctly. So you're expected to put the month and the year if you know it. So you're expected to have, if you started in October of 2022, then it would be the 10th of 2022. Some people put when they finished a particular role, and if it's for a particular reason specific there, and because it was a shorter period of time than 2 years, say, they may put why they their job was stopped. So for instance, COVID is a perfect good one. A lot of people lost their job due to COVID, and some people had only just started working with some companies in a couple of months before, or maybe even less than a year, and then that company shuts. So in those particular cases, I would maybe say in brackets due to COVID, the position was terminated due to COVID, because recruiters are also looking, do you stay with the company for a period of time, or do you just keep hopping and changing after less than a year? There's a rule of thumb that says 2 years is a good period, a good time, but life doesn't always work that way, does it? Something happens in jobs, and it's you might take a job on and you get treated extremely bad, and it's less than a year and you want to move on. You don't stipulate that obviously in your CV, but you need to work out how you put that proactively. So you say that you took the position on, but it didn't. The company and you didn't have the right fit, or you were told the role was this and it was turned out to be this, and so you moved on.
So you would recommend to include this information in your resume?
Not all of it. So if there's a good time that you've been in a period of time in a company, then no. But if there's a shorter period, And you got to be really careful how you put the spin on that, because
How you phrase it.
how you phrase it. So we talked about fonts. We talked about making sure that you ensure that your grammar and your spelling and everything is good. We talked about that you do your research for the company to make sure that you are writing down everything that you need to have in your CV. Your word matching from the job criteria into your job specification, and then keying those words into also your work related experience. Your work related experience is goal orientated, or what you achieved. It isn't I did this. So we talked about that you had like an 85% pass rate for math students, or simple things like developed new internal systems and KPIs to ensure teams were running efficiently, so that there was cost savings, etc., etc. Those things show that you are capable of doing stuff in that company, and that you can come in and do the role. Instead of saying, "Oh, I managed a team and changed," I managed a team and I changed systems, or I updated systems, or whatever. I used words like this. I introduced, I managed, I brought in, key adjectives that show you in a really good.
That are a bit active or a bit expressive of what you took initiative.
Yeah. So instead of saying I managed a team of 5 people and ran several projects, instead of saying that, I said, manage a team of 5 and brought in new working practices along with new KPIs to ensure that the team were running efficiently, to ensure that we had customer satisfaction, or that turnaround points within the business were made shorter rather than, whatever it is. So it's more goal orientated and shows that you are a person that can do things. Okay. Graphics. So I didn't mention this before. Don't use graphics on your CV, especially if it has to go through the ATS system. So it's nice. I'll give an example. Some people might say I speak 3 languages, and they'll put flags of those languages they speak. You can keep the flags, but also then put the word. So if you speak Urdu, put it. And don't put a little flag.
Put the word.
Put the word. Have the flag and the word. If you spoke Arabic, there's no flag for Arabic because there's lots of different countries. But say you spoke French, but you might want to put the flag for French but write French, because the ATS system doesn't pick up graphics; it picks up words. Okay. So we talked about spelling. For me, though, it is fundamental that you read the job specification and work that into your CV. Looking at soft skills, okay? So again, this is where you can talk about, you can put this into your actual job history, or you can weave it into maybe your extracurriculum activities to show that you've got the skill set, or you are the right personality for the type of company or the organisation that you're applying for. Research, look for the company as much as you can. If they don't have a website, large companies will generally have websites, academic institutes will have websites, etc. If they don't have a website, more than likely they've got some sort of social media page, and it will give you an idea from there what they are all about. If you don't think you're going to fit that organisation, then don't apply, because you could get your CV all the way through and then sit in front of the person doing who's criterion, or even you get to the interview stage, and that is at the point where they are looking to see if you fit the team or you fit the role. The best way to think about this is if you think of a jigsaw puzzle and you've got one piece and you're missing a piece, that's the member on the team. You want that piece to fit the jigsaw. You don't want to squash another piece in to fit the role. Okay, you want to find that person that fits the role. Or another way to do it is, we have the thing, when you have the saying, trying to fit square pegs into round holes. Have you ever heard that phrase? Yeah. So a recruiter isn't interested in trying to squash a square peg into a round hole. They're interested in finding that
perfect fit.
Now, if they can't quite find that perfect fit, the next thing they would do is they may go for a round circle with slightly rougher edges, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So the next best option.
next best option.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not gonna go for that square. No matter how much you wish they would, it's just not gonna happen. And I'm trying to think what else there is. Like I said, don't worry worry about the ATS system, but don't worry about it too much, because you need to have, and if you do decide to go for a 2-column CV, think about how you're going to format your information, and make sure that your information on your CV is clearly headed, under education, under career, personal, under like hobbies and interests. Okay. So if you do decide to go for a 2-column, maybe you put your education on the smaller column with your hobbies, but your career is in the main bit with your personal specification. Make sure it's clear, because like you say, the ATS system or even the human is going to be looking at certain things, and if I can't find your education, or I don't understand it because it's not clear, I won't even look at it. I won't even try it. You got to think about, if a person has to spend more than a few minutes finding the key elements of information that they want, you're just going to get rejected. So you've got to make it as easy as possible for the person or the ATS system to gatekeep you past the first gatekeep. But once you get past that, you're going to make it as easy as possible for that person who's seeing your CV to see that you've got the right education, the right skill set, the right work experience. You got, you're goal orientated. You will help the company achieve what their goals are. Like, go back to their mission and vision statement, especially if you can get their vision statement and you can fit something in that shows that you have the skill set to move that company into their future vision.
Yeah, maybe that would also really enhance your resume.
Yeah.
And that's a great tip. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Gráinne, for such an insightful session, and I'm sure our audience will be surprised and delighted to know the information that you have given us. So moving on from that, I do have some specific questions, especially for women who are in STEM.
Okay.
So for PhD researchers or people who are doing postgraduate, how can they translate their research experience on their resume?
I guess it depends on what they're doing on their research. So if their research is in a particular specialized field, then they really need to have a LinkedIn account that matches with their CV. And they need to be clear on what their research is. And then they need to be open up to recruiters finding them, because there's more likely in that case they're going to be headhunted, or that's what the ideal situation is that they're headhunted. But if you don't have a LinkedIn account that is matching your CV, and again it goes back to with your LinkedIn account, instead of just listing again what this thing what you would do in your CV, or when I worked here, or when I taught here, bring the key skills up. So again, go back to what's their ideal job. Okay, so where is their end goal? What is the type of job they're looking for? Go and look at those types of roles and that information, and see what the key elements are again, and those types of roles and you might find an old job description for the company, that one of the companies that you desire. Okay, and then use your profile on your LinkedIn account, similar to what you would do in your CV, where you match the criteria, what they're sort of looking for, and you use your research, but orientate it towards the type of things that they want. So what were you doing your research on? What were your outcomes? How is this going to help the organization? Have you done some groundbreaking research that's kind of, outcomes, or what is it that research is going to do, or how is it going to affect, or how is it going to help that organization, and make sure that's clear. Because what you're trying to do is then get yourself headhunted. And recruiters use LinkedIn as a headhunting tool. And again, what they're going to do is they're going to use keywords to search. And those keywords are going to be based on the job specification or what they're looking for.
So basically translate your research into something that is discoverable via LinkedIn.
Via the job specification. Always try and match your experience to that job specification. We talked about like using the keywords, using key elements, and then using the research that you have to fit. And it might not fit everything, but fit in. Look at what the keywords are. Look at the key things that they're looking for, and then use your LinkedIn profile. Make really strategic links. So if you're going for you want to work with a particular company, find the HR manager, find the manager of those teams that you want to work for, link into them, be active. Okay. If you work for another area where there's a little bit more competition, then you've got to look at how, again, the job specification and how your research can fit into helping that organization move forward. Okay. Some company, some like academic organizations will want people with PhDs because they require that for the teaching level or the academic level. What they're looking for though is then how you translate what you've done into a natural working environment. Because a lot of the time when you're a PhD student, you've only been in the education system for so long, but you lack work experience. You don't lack skills, you lack work experience in a particular field, but you have skills and you've developed skill sets that you can translate. So you need to make sure you take them and bring them across.
So building on to my previous question, for those women in STEM or people in STEM who have a research background and they have had some sort of leadership roles, for example, they were a principal investigator in a part of research. So how can they translate that leadership experience onto a resume and maybe, attract recruiters and tell them that, see, we also have leadership experience?
Again, using those key elements, and then making sure that you highlight those leadership skills. So this goes back to the soft skills side. So not only are they looking for, do you have this, and this for, ticking that you've got work experience. Remember I said to you, like the third stage of the CV is looking at soft skills and if you are a fit for the organisation before you go to an interview. So the soft skills says, like team builder, like team leader, can work as a team or an individual, have, focus, whatever it is. Use those particular skills because they will list them as well, and highlight them that you have done that in your research. So, but again, not just saying, I was a project manager of a such and such a team, successfully led. Use adjectives which are positive and so successfully led on several project teams as part of my PhD research that enabled us to produce this and this, or whatever it is. I mean, to be honest, like I'm not fully extended into the STEM sort of job, so it's kind of really hard for me to really.
So I think for the education sector, it would be more like a mentoring thing, because a PhD student is going to mentor MS students, or for example, if there is a principal investigator, he's going to overhead the whole project, and he's going to oversee a team of postgrads, PhDs, and MS students. So I think that thing can be translated into leadership experience.
Yeah, and building on that as well is if you think that they've done that, but their first role within like education or etc. isn't going to be maybe head of department. It may be like they're going to go in as a professor first of all, but maybe like in a few years after they want to jump into a head of department. Use those skills that you had when you were doing your research, and if you were leading, you were the lead person in a project and you were managing high-level staff. Don't forget that, because now you've got 5 years of work experience. Make sure you bring that forward, because that shows you've got leadership skills. So it's not always just about what you did every single time when you work. Don't forget the stuff that you've done before, and I make sure you highlight it, so that you could then show that you did lead a team of highly qualified staff projects, even though it wasn't related to the work, but that you've got that skill, so that if you're then going for a position that's requiring you to work or manage people, they can see that you've got that.
Yeah. So basically, if you are a researcher, whether you are at the PhD level or you are at the postgrad level, or you are a principal investigator, you would be at any time mentoring students or postgraduates underneath you. So you always have research experience, and you should translate that into leadership experience. So, Gráinne, academics who want to maybe switch to the industry side, how can they make that leap? What changes in their resume should they do or make in order to maybe switch the roles? Because academic path is very different to the industrial role.
It is. So I think what you need to do as an academic is probably look at other curriculum or extracurriculum activities that they may be involved in at the university that they're working at, and use some of those skills. So, I mean, teaching is a skill set itself, but it doesn't translate fully into a business environment. However, if you're involved in an extracurriculum activity, or you're leading, like a maths group, or you're involved in like a science development project with some students, or you're involved in something else, use those skill set. Use that. So you've led a team of students in producing this, or you've done this and this. Okay, there's the skill sets that you can kind of use to pull again. Always go back to, keep using the same thing, always go back to the job specification, see what they're looking for, and then see if you can. And it may not be that you can use some of the stuff that you're doing at where you work, but if you're doing other things outside, over and above, let's say for instance what you're doing, okay, you're running this project for women in like the STEM industry. Now, if you say this was your part-time, something you were doing on the side, but you had another job, this is something key that you could use.
So it adds value to what I'm doing. So as a general question, how important is it to align your CV with your LinkedIn profile?
Very important. And you could probably do a whole other chat just on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is something that you need to understand, you need to use it, and if you don't use it correctly, it just doesn't work. A lot of people will kind of be on LinkedIn and go, oh, it just didn't work, I don't get any response back from CVs I send in, etc. There's two ways that people use LinkedIn. Some people use it just as a social networking, but if you're using it for recruitment, then you really need to look at how LinkedIn works. So a lot of recruiters, there's a recruiting side of LinkedIn that recruiters pay for, and it allows them to search for people and headhunt. So you need to be using like key words. It goes back to the types of roles that you're looking for. I think it's easier for people who are maybe working in like STEM orientated industry, because they're more specific. If you work for like things like marketing, or you work for things, it's a bit harder because your jobs are so become more broad. So it's very
such a saturated market.
And also it's quite broad. So it's kind of like, how do you narrow it down? So but then it's kind of like saying, just like using marketing, social media, that would then narrow you down. So anybody who was looking for someone who's marketing but a social media person, that would get you. So in your title or above the top of, and the first things that you should be able to read on your LinkedIn is the job that you're looking for. You can also do that on your CV. So that helps get you through the ATS system. So you could say like data analysis, or computer programmer, or whatever it is, digital marketer. You can put them on, you can, under your name, etc. That's just another key thing you can do in your CVs, put it there. Make sure it's the same thing on your LinkedIn so people find you. Make sure your settings are set to being able to be found.
Open to work.
There's a few other settings, there's some CVs on YouTube, etc. you can account. And then make sure that you're matching up your experience or what you're putting on LinkedIn with your CV. Again, that goes back to matching up and looking at what's the expectations from the jobs, the types of jobs that you would be doing in the industry that you're looking to go into. Okay. Also, that people want to get a feel for you, which is still they don't want a robot. They don't want someone who's just kind of like, I do this, and this, right? So put some personality into your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, add a human element, or maybe get some recommendations from your professors.
Yeah. So, first of all, put like a little bit of kind of, you can put humor in, or you can kind of be a little bit more personality into those kind of, the way that you word it. It doesn't need to be so as strict as you're on your CV. You can kind of play with it a little bit, but you need to get recommendations, linking up to people, going out and actively finding the people for the companies that you want to work for. If you have the top 5 companies that you would love to work for, get your CV right, get your LinkedIn profile right, and then start finding the key people that the recruiters, the HR departments, the managers, the team manager of a particular team that you would be looking to move into. That's why I said doing your research on a company is really key, and finding out. And this is why if they have a website, it makes your life a little bit easier. But yeah, with be careful about as well who you're linking with in LinkedIn, because what happens is recruiters will use LinkedIn to go back and look at your profile. So if they see you and you think, gosh, this person seems really good, and they seem to have all the right skills and everything else, I'm just going to check them out on LinkedIn. And the other thing I want to actually say is be careful about your social media.
Your digital footprint, basically.
Your digital footprint, because people will check. If your settings are private, it's okay. But if they're not, and there's images of things that don't fit in with the company ethos, then
there's going to be a problem.
There's going to be a problem. They won't take you on. People have their applications rejected because of some of the stuff that's been posted from them on social media. Don't go on social media and start ranting and raving about some sort of key issue. You can have all your own beliefs. You can have all of your own religious beliefs, or your personal or political beliefs, or whatever they are. Just don't broadcast them over social media,
over the internet.
Because people will check.
One final question, but I think this is the most important question, especially with regards to women. The question is that, what strategies would you recommend to people who are returning to their careers after a break? How can they sort of manage the gap in their CVs?
There's different ways. I guess it depends on why the gap is. A lot of the time, obviously, women, that gap will be because they've been having children, or they've chosen to have a child and then stay at home and be a stay-at-home mum for several years until the child gets to a certain age, and then they want to go back. Then that's part of life. Okay, so women do have career breaks. It's part of life. What you've got to do though is, again, look at what you've been doing in those 5 years. And this also kind of goes back to, I forgot to mention it when we're talking about the academic. If you know that you want to move out, I'm going to come back to the point before, but if you know that you're in an academic field and you want to move into the world of work, and you have like a kind of an idea that you want to do it in the next year or so, but you don't have any other extracurriculum stuff that you're doing that would help you go out and do it. Take it on board. If you have to go and take on, and work for some sort of program that's going on with kids, or some business program, or developing kids or mentoring kids or whatever it is. Do it. because that gives you the skills. So the same thing with mothers. Okay, being a full-time parent is not an easy job. It's I think it's one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. You don't get to go and switch off at the end of the day. Your kids are there. So, being a mum, you're doing a hell of a lot of things. So if you're working with your kids and you're helping with their schooling, you're educating them. If you are taking your children to extracurriculum activities, you're developing them. Okay. If you are, helping out with your kids' school, all those things matter. They can be used. And like I said, I'll give an example with my sister. Like I say, she has 3 kids, but she helps out with a swimming club, right? So that shows her straight away that she's willing to help people. She's got the skills to, lead with the kids. She's got soft skills. Okay. She manages those 3 kids with their homework. She makes sure that she's got to be very, up with her timekeeping. She's got to be on board with everything. So use those skills and look at the soft skill sets and kind of clarify them into stuff that you've been doing. Again, if you are a mother at home and you're not really doing, I can't say not doing very much because that's not really how a mother works, but there's not a lot of other stuff going on, get involved in some stuff. If you know that your child is 4 and at the time they're 5 or 6 and they're going to go off to school, now is the time for you to start looking at what can you do to help you over and above just being a mum that can help with your CV. Again, go back to the type of job you think you want to go back into, or you want to the career path and what's the next level. And then again, look at sort of what things you can do to help and work at it. It also you might need to always take a side step as well. I think it's really unfair on women because you can't drop out and then kind of drop back in sometimes where you came out from. Sometimes you need to take a side step to get to where you are. I think be prepared for that. Be prepared for that, and also be prepared that you might not get your fully dream job, but what's the job that you could handle for 2 years before you're able to go for that one that you want. I give a really good example for me. When I first moved to Oman, so I came here teaching English, and I did that as a sabbatical for 2 years because I was doing business management for a role in the UK, and it was really stressful. And it wasn't stressful for the job, it was stressful with people because there was a lot of changes going on and people don't like change. And so there was a lot of issues being about with, having to deal with people and people not being happy. And some people have been in these roles for 20 years, and it's a lot of change. And, even just bringing them up to date when using computers and things like that and computer systems. So I decided I wanted 2 years out, and I did a teaching qualification. And then came out to Oman, but I'd never taught English. But I wanted to come to Oman, and I knew that I probably wouldn't get a job in Muscat, not for my first job. So I accepted that I would probably have to go to somewhere less desirable in Oman that people may want to go to, and I ended up going to Saur. Now, I actually enjoyed being in Saur for a year.
Oh wow!
But I ended up in Saur, and then I ended up in Nizwa for another year before I got to Muscat. But I knew that was going to happen. Okay, and I accepted that because I knew I wasn't going to go straight out of doing work into doing a CELTA, having no teaching experience, and just landing me a job in Muscat when there are teachers who had already 2 to 3, 5 years. So I kind of accepted the fact that I would have to take a kind of back step or side step. I was in the country I wanted to be in, but I wasn't in Muscat, but I was in Saur, 2 hours away. Yeah. Okay, I can do with that.
Acceptable.
Yeah. And I got that experience. And then I went to Nizwa for the second year, 2 years experience under my belt. Now I could apply for jobs
in Muscat.
So
basically start from goals that are achievable at your position.
Yes.
And maybe work towards your dream job.
Yeah. And unfortunately, as a mum, if you're taking, a stay-at-home mum, or you're taking a gap, be realistic with your goals. If you were in a management position before you took a career break or, to have children, it's possible that you might be able to go into a management position, but it could be hard, it could be more difficult. Maybe you've got to take that step back for a couple of years before you can then go and move on. Or you take a management position in a company less desirable for you to kind of get that experience again to then go for the one that you want. Hopefully you land your dream job straight off, and that don't stop going for them.
Yeah, best case scenario is
best case scenario, and don't stop applying for those jobs, but be a little bit realistic. And I'd say that's the same for what we talked about when you're moving academic into industry and industry into academic. If you're going industry into academic, I think it's probably easier that way, because you can show the academic institute that you've got skill sets that you can teach the students. The other way, I think, is a little bit more difficult.
It's a bit tough,
Yeah. So be realistic with goals. Maybe you can't get that university in that desirable city, but can you get a job in a company in a smaller town or somewhere that's maybe 2 hours away? That is not great commuting, but it's doable. I commuted from Muscat to Nizwa for 1 whole year, 5 days a week, because I didn't want to live in Nizwa. I wanted to live in Muscat, but I had to work in Nizwa. So I was an hour and 20 minutes every day.
So that is dedication.
But I had an end goal.
Yes.
Which was to get me to Muscat.
So Gráinne, thank you so much for this informative session. I'm sure that our audience has gained a lot of information on how to get hired and find the best job that fits their requirements and their goals. And also, if you want to get your CVs reviewed as an individual, then obviously I'll leave the contact details for Gráinne down below in the description. And also, if as a business, if you want to streamline your processes, write out the job descriptions, or maybe look for the right candidates, whether you're in Muscat or internationally, Gráinne will be there to help you. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.